James, they are rebooting Back to the Future. Jeremy Johnson, everybody thought he was going to be the guy. You've talked about him a lot. We've all talked to him about a lot. He's on the bench now. Sean White is Auburn's new starter going into the Mississippi State game. Somewhat surprising because we didn't expect Gus Malzahn to make the announcement to us. And here we are now. The Sean White era is here.
Yeah, it's a big change, certainly. One that you really can't argue based on performance isn't warranted. It's hard to argue against. I know a lot of fans were clamoring for it, and now we'll see exactly what Sean White looks like. Obviously, Wes, we know a lot from the recruiting trail that Sean White was an Under-Armour All-American. He was the MVP of that game, that he performed well at the Elite 11 camp, that he had a lot of passing stats while in high school. At the same time, he had offers from various different places. Some were very great programs like Auburn, some were not. So we'll get to see on Saturday, starting Saturday, exactly what this Sean White experiment starts to look like.
Right, and as Brandon said, I don't think any of us kind of expected this. I kind of thought that they would still stick with Jeremy and maybe play Sean, in a smaller role just to kind of get his feet wet. But the fact is, he hasn't thrown a college pass yet. So this is a huge game. I mean, this is almost seems like it's do or die for Auburn right now. They can't really fall back and fall to 0-2. So we'll see how Sean White performs. Coaches have praised his accuracy since he's been here. He's obviously a lot smaller than Jeremy is, but there's going to be a lot of differences, I think, between Jeremy and Sean White.
Yeah, back in May, I was talking to Gus at a booster club circuit. No one was there. We were talking about Sean White and his accuracy, and he said, and I didn't really believe him at the time, that he really pushed Jeremy Johnson a little bit in spring camp. Everybody knew Jeremy was probably going to be the starter, but he was impressed with the way Sean White responded and competed as if he was going for the starting job. And he said, wasn't necessarily a hard decision to make, but he went, you know what, that guy looks like more like a starter than maybe we thought at the end of spring practice, which is the good news for Auburn. But here's the bad news. Gus Malzahn and everybody else said that this guy was going to be, a world beater possibly, an all-SEC type. He was among the favorites for the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
He's completely off the board now. He's not going to be, possibly not even playing in the stadium Saturday night. We've seen people fall from grace. We've seen people fall as a starter. But the way this all turned so quickly in 3 weeks.
Especially when one of those weeks was an FCS game.
An FCS game, exactly right.
It's not like they played a murderer's
two opponents in which are not very good. Louisville's 0-3. Jacksonville State's a great FCS team, but it's an FCS team. And all it takes is really one more game against your first SEC game, and you're on the bench. I've never seen anything like it.
It would take me a while to find one for an exact reference because there have obviously been some really great big-time Heisman hopefuls to open a season that have fallen very quickly. But this one, just the way in which it went, it wasn't a matter of just not performing exactly to the hype. This was so underperforming and so many issues.
And to get benched so quickly when, in fact, everybody else is still almost giving Jeremy the benefit of the doubt of, okay, he's going to get to – that was his first road start. That was his first time on the road starting, and then now it's done.
But as we had alluded to, this seems very much to be a mental thing, and we didn't know if it could be fixed. And clearly, there's definitely some doubt from the coaching staff there, because when we sit there after the game, some of the fans overreacted to some of what we had written about and said, "Oh no, you're making more of this than it is." That his reaction to not having a reaction at all and not having a concern at all about possibly losing the starting job didn't mean that much. No, it did.
Well, the coaches did not like that. You could tell that by Lashley's comments Sunday.
Brandon brought up a good point a few minutes ago. I mean, what if Sean White goes out there on Saturday and throws a couple interceptions? Do they go back to Jeremy?
I think they could.
Yeah, they could.
They might also just go to Jonathan or Jason. Jonathan Wallace or Jason Smith, who, by the way, Jason Smith's getting reps at quarterback right now, and I'm sure he'll get more reps this week than he has in previous weeks.
Look, at this point, this season may very well pretty much entirely rely on Sean White to pull this through. And if it's not, then this season...
What do you do?
Well, what do you do? What's the next contingency? We'll find out. Obviously, from an Auburn perspective, from a fan perspective, you hope you don't find that out. You hope that Sean White delivers. But this may very well rest entirely on the shoulders of a redshirt freshman who's never thrown a pass.